Hello, dear. My name is Eleanor, and I'm 91 years old now. I have a story to tell you, and I need you to hear this before you empty your bank account trying to save children who are old enough to save themselves. Because I did it. Oh, I did it for a very long time, thinking I was doing the right thing. I spent almost 40 years handing money to my adult children every time life got a little uncomfortable for them. And you know what happened? It nearly destroyed all of us. Not just my bank account, but our hearts. My hands shake now when I hold my teacup, and my knees ache every morning before the sun comes up. But my mind is still sharp enough to remember every dollar I gave away trying to prove my love. And if I could go back and change one thing about the way I raised my children, it would not be the punishments or the yelling or the times I worked too much. No, not those. It would be this. I would stop rescuing grown people from the consequences of their own decisions. See, nobody tells mothers this, especially mothers from my generation. We weren't taught to say no. We were taught that love means sacrifice. Endless sacrifice. Like a well that never runs dry. You give and give until there is nothing left of you but bones and exhaustion and a quiet little hope. A hope that maybe one day your children will appreciate everything you did for them, but they rarely do. When you save them from the rain every single time, they never learn how to carry their own umbrella. And then when the real storm hits, and it always does, they find themselves helpless in the wind. I carried their bags for so long they never built the muscle to carry their own. I thought I was being good. I thought I was helping. I thought I was showing them how much they meant to me. But I was wrong. I was actually stealing something very precious from them every time I opened my checkbook. Do you know what I was stealing? It took me 90 years to realize that by solving their problems, I took away their strength. But it's more than just strength. There's a specific kind of dignity I took from them. But sometimes all your giving does is teach people that your suffering is normal, that your sacrifice is expected, that your wallet is theirs. The first time my oldest son asked me for money, he was 26 years old, newly married. His car transmission had failed. He called me crying, embarrassed, swearing it was temporary. Just until next month, Mama. That's what he said. I remember standing in my kitchen holding the phone while a pot of beans boiled over on the stove. Just until next month. I remember opening the envelope where I kept emergency cash and counting out $1,200 with shaking fingers, because that was grocery money and medicine money and electric bill money, but he was my son. And mothers save their children. That's what I believed. He paid me back 6 months later, not all of it, but enough. I convinced myself everything was fine, but it was just the beginning of a long, long road. Then my daughter needed help with rent after her divorce. Then my youngest needed help covering a business loan. Then came school clothes for grandchildren, medical bills, credit card debt, a down payment, another emergency, another crisis, another late-night phone call with somebody crying on the other end saying, "I don't know what to do." And every single time I stepped in, because I thought that's what good mothers do, but I was missing the truth. You want to know something heartbreaking? Every time I rescued them, they loved me for about 3 days. 3 days of thank you calls and "you're the best mother in the world" and promises that things would change. Then life went back to normal, and a few months later, another disaster arrived. It never really stopped. By the time I turned 74, I had quietly drained almost everything Thomas and I spent our lives building. Thomas worked so hard for that. We both did. We thought it would be our safety net, our peace. But the net was gone. I had cut the ropes myself, one loan at a time, thinking I was being a hero. And when Thomas finally realized what I'd done, well, that's a different kind of pain. My husband worked at the post office for 41 years. 41 years. That man woke up at 4:30 every morning, in rainstorms and winter cold and summer heat so we could have security when we got old. And after he died, I started handing that security away piece by piece because hearing my children struggle hurt me more than watching my savings disappear. That's the trap nobody warns you about. A mother's pain threshold is dangerous. You can survive things that should break you if it means protecting your children, even when your children are 50 years old. At 79, I got pneumonia, bad enough that I ended up in the hospital for 9 days. I remember lying there with tubes in my arms, staring at the ceiling tiles, thinking about something that terrified me more than dying. I was broke, not completely broke, but close enough that one more medical emergency could have destroyed me. And the strangest part, none of my children knew, because I had spent years protecting them from discomfort. That's what mothers do sometimes. We make our suffering invisible. My oldest son walked into my hospital room, carrying balloons and expensive coffee. Expensive coffee. And I remember looking at that coffee. I had paid his mortgage twice in the last decade while secretly cutting my blood pressure pills in half to save money. Something inside me cracked that day. Not anger exactly, clarity. I started replaying the last 40 years in my head. All the sacrifices, all the emergencies, all the temporary help that somehow became permanent dependence. It was time to stop being a hero and start being a mother who tells the truth. And I realized something painful. My children were not irresponsible because life was hard. They were irresponsible because I had removed the hard part. Every single time consequences showed up, I stepped in. I never let them fall long enough to learn how to stand. That realization nearly crushed me because, good Lord, I loved those children. I still do. But love without boundaries becomes destruction. You keep pouring water into somebody else's bucket while your own house burns down behind you. After I got out of the hospital, my youngest son called asking for $5,000, said he was behind on taxes, said the government was threatening penalties, said he'd pay me back quickly. I sat quietly holding the phone, and for the first time in my life, I said no, not maybe later. Not let me see what I can do, just no. There was silence on the phone so long I thought the call dropped. Then he said something I will never forget. Well, what am I supposed to do now? And that sentence told me everything. It broke my heart all over again. Because he was 53 years old asking his 85-year-old mother how to survive his own life. I had built a bridge he never had to walk. I built it with my husband's hard-earned money and my own health, and now the bridge was closed. He didn't know how to swim because I never let him get his feet wet. That was my failure as a mother. My duty wasn't to save him from taxes. My duty was to let him figure it out, even if it hurt us both. I realized that by staying helpful, I was actually keeping him small. I had to let him grow, even at 53. But saying no was just the beginning. The fallout from my children after that first no was like a tidal wave. And somehow that had become normal for both of us. He got angry, said I was abandoning him, said family should help family, said I had money put away and he was drowning. What he didn't know was that my money put away barely covered my medications and utilities anymore. But even deeper than that, I realized something else. If helping somebody is destroying you, it is no longer help, it is self-erasure. That first year after I stopped giving money away was horrible. My children acted different, colder, less attentive. The phone rang less. Invitations slowed down. And let me tell you something that hurts worse than almost anything a mother can experience. Realizing some people loved your rescue more than they loved you. I cried many nights over that truth, not because my children were evil, they weren't. They were just used to a system I helped create, a system where mama absorbs the pain so everybody else can stay comfortable. But slowly, something unexpected happened. They adapted. A few months after that phone call, my daughter picked up extra shifts at work. My youngest son sold his truck and downsized to a smaller apartment. My oldest finally sat down with a financial advisor. Instead of expecting his mother to keep patching every hole in his life with retirement money she no longer had. And you know what shocked me most? None of them died. None of them collapsed. None of them became homeless under bridges. Because Mama stopped rescuing them, they figured it out. The same way I figured it out after Thomas died. The same way every grown adult eventually has to figure life out. That's when I understood something. Something that changed the way I looked at every dollar and every emergency for the rest of my days. Because I finally saw what I was really doing when I opened that checkbook. And it wasn't love. Helping is not always love. Sometimes helping is control dressed up as kindness. Sometimes rescuing people keeps them weak because their weakness gives us purpose. Now that truth is ugly. I didn't want to admit it about myself. But after Thomas passed, those emergency phone calls gave me something. They made me feel needed, important, useful. And when you're old and lonely and grieving, feeling needed can become addictive, even if it's destroying you. I remember one evening sitting alone on my porch watching rainwater drip from the roof while holding my checkbook in my lap. I added everything together, every loan, every bailout, every temporary rescue over 4 decades. Do you know what the number was? Almost $310,000. $310,000, enough to completely change the final years of my life. Enough to travel, enough to hire help when my arthritis got bad, enough to stop worrying every time the price of groceries went up. Gone. And the hardest part wasn't the money. It was realizing how much fear had controlled me. Fear that my children would struggle, fear they would resent me, fear they would think I was selfish. But let me tell you what I know now at 91 years old. Children who only feel loved when you are sacrificing yourself do not understand love, because real love should not require your destruction. One afternoon, my granddaughter came to visit me. She was 27 then. Smart girl, quiet, observant. She sat on the edge of my bed and asked me a question that no one else had the courage to ask. She sat with me in the kitchen while I peeled apples, and suddenly she said something that stopped me cold. "Grandma, Mom says you used to save everybody all the time." I laughed a little and said, "I tried to." And she looked me right in the eyes and said, "I think that's why nobody in this family knows how to handle hard things." Lord, that child hit me harder than life ever did, because she was right. Every discomfort became something to escape instead of endure. I had unknowingly raised people who panicked at hardship because I kept removing it before it could teach them anything. But if the mother bird doesn't nudge them toward the edge, they never fly. They stay weak forever. Nobody asks what happens when the giving never ends. Nobody asks who rescues the rescuer. At 88, my washing machine broke. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't have enough money to replace it comfortably. I sat on the floor of my laundry room and cried so hard my chest hurt. Not because of the washing machine, because I realized I had failed to prepare myself. And old age is expensive. The medications, the repairs, the hearing aids. Every dollar you hand away in guilt is a dollar you may need one day. That was the moment I finally forgave myself. I understood I had simply been a mother trying too hard to protect the people she loved. I wasn't weak. I was loving. But loving someone shouldn't mean abandoning yourself. Now, my children call differently, more honestly, more respectfully. Real relationships finally began. Not transactions, not emergencies, just family. My youngest son actually apologized 2 years ago. We were on the porch watching the sunset when he said, "Mama, I think I stayed a boy too long." Love looks more like letting people become strong. Your job is not to make life painless. It's to help them survive pain without collapsing. Sometimes the most loving thing you can say is, "No, John." If this stirred a memory, subscribe to this channel. Every week we bring you the wisdom that modern life forgot. Leave a comment telling me one thing from your upbringing that kept people well without calling it health advice. Jan. I will be reading every single one. Thank you for listening, dear.